Hello and welcome into this episode of the Dad Verb Podcast. On this episode, we're going to be chatting about saving for our kids, covering off on 529 accounts. It's a topic that has kind of come up on occasion in our Discord, and we wanted to bring it to light, especially with some new things that are happening that just rolled out with 529 accounts. And before we get started, we do want to say that, this is a financial topic, but this is not financial advice. Okay. We're not telling you what to do with your money. We're just kind of making you aware of a popular way of saving for kids and college. So we're going to be talking about that throughout this episode, and then possibly getting into video games that we loved as kids. This is going to be if we are all healthy. Well, were we healthy last time, guys, during our sick check?
Yes.
We were.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think we were all rolling off of sicknesses.
This
in the last
is going to
check.
be
2 weeks.
The fact. Yeah, I think we're actually during a time that is traditionally a ton of sick kids all around. We, knock on wood, we're healthy. I'm good on our end. What about you guys? Are you guys healthy here?
Yeah,
maybe the assumption should
too.
just be I'm healthy unless I say otherwise.
Yeah, Andrew's always freaking healthy, man. Yeah, but oh my gosh, guys, are we 3 weeks running?
We are
with no
I think
sicknesses?
we're 3 in a row.
Guys, This is amazing. When we were yesterday, we decided we just didn't want to go to church, and apparently a kid just puked in the hallways of church, and then other kids started puking. So we're like, "This is amazing." We got to skip that. So I don't know. I feel like it's gonna come up and bite us when I have to travel soon. But
I was thinking about that today as I was rinsing out a baby bottle, because I was like, I haven't sanitized these things since we moved. Okay, we moved in October, end of September. It is now I have not ran them through a dishwasher. I haven't put them in the stupid microwave steamer thing. Like, they get a little Dawn, they get a rag run through them, they get put out to dry, right? And my brain immediately went, that's it. That's what it is. That's the reason my kids are not getting sick, is because there's just germs in their life. Like, between the 2 dogs and the fact that dad doesn't sanitize all their stuff all the time, I think they're just constantly sick. It's not that they're healthy. They're just always sick. We don't know any better.
Yeah. Man, I'm proud of us, though. I'm proud of us that we are that we've got a run of sickness. And for those of you who are listening at home, I'm hoping that you guys are staying healthy. This time of year is always just riddled with sickness and stuff like that. We currently are in Texas, and we are battling a big snow front, or not snow front, but it's just really, really cold. We woke up to
really,
icy
really
roads.
cold.
Yeah, well, I mean, I spent a lot of years in Utah.
It, Andrew?
It's Texas cold.
It's Texas cold, so it's it's a breezy 52. No, no, I mean, nothing like the Kansas City Chiefs game that we just saw. That was, I think, the wind chill was negative 30 is what I saw. I think that was insane. I don't understand how they play football.
Their helmets were cracking.
Yeah, Mahomes'
because they're getting hit. The bells were too cold.
That was just insane to me. So,
and you know what nobody brought up? The commentators were all talking about his helmet broke and they didn't call it on the field, right? Nobody talked about did the rest of the equipment hold up? At what temperature does this stuff fail? And they really need to be like, no, we're done playing, because you're just going to be running around with shrapnel strapped to you. I mean,
the shoulder pads become
no one brought it up. They're all just like, oh, it broke. That's weird. That doesn't happen a lot. It's it was frozen. We all know why it broke.
I wonder how many spares they actually bring. It's a 53-man roster. What if all of their helmets snapped and they just had broken helmets and having to replace?
I bet you there's 2 or 3 a player. I would not be surprised.
That's wild.
I think there's at least a couple.
Yeah.
That's a lot of logistics if you think about it. It's just that's wild.
I mean, I know for a fact that the University of Utah hockey program, they come out of those locker rooms with a new helmet every game. And that's university. That's collegiate. Game. Yeah, it's collegiate. So, but that's the kind of money they're spending on just helmets. And so the NFL's got to be doing something similar.
Yeah, the Oregon Ducks and stuff are like that too. They were talking about their uniform combinations, because I mean they have some of the wildest uniforms in college sports. Yeah,
because they're right next to Nike HQ.
Yeah, they could do it was 400 or 500 different combinations, just depending on what they had based on the jerseys and pants and all that. No. And they were coming out with basically brand new stuff every single time they played a game.
Yeah.
So they had the core design, and then they were just like making like all the helmets were redone every single game.
Yeah.
So they came out with brand new gear every time they stepped on the field.
Oregon has always had that kind of like fun little thing that they can add to their recruiting measures. It's just like, by the way, we always look different and flashy and whatever. It's just because of Nike just being right down the road. So
you never know what you're going to end up on.
Yeah. Being in Texas country, I mean, Dallas going down to the Packers, which was a big surprise. That's everyone's impressed. My son was actually really, really sad about that. So,
oh man,
I could care less because our team didn't even make the playoffs. We're terrible. We're the Jets. So,
So how cold is it? Like I want to get this on the record. How cold were you last night in your Texas winter wonderland there?
We had to drip the faucets cold. Put it that way. Let's see. Hold on. I honestly don't know. All I know is that it's been cold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or else the pipes freeze.
Yeah, it happens all the time. Your pipes freeze and burst here if it gets too cold.
I just had to replace a burst pipe yesterday.
Your homes aren't insulated that well?
The building codes are completely different. So I grew up in upstate New York. I now live in South Carolina. I have perspectives on both. And so when I first moved here, I was like you, Andrew. I used to make fun of like, oh my God, it's going to snow, and people would freak out and buy bread and milk and like the world was ending, right?
Yeah.
And
what it was like when I was in North Carolina.
Now that I've lived here a little bit, I sort of understand and realize like we have zero infrastructure to deal with snow. Like they spray salt water on the roads here because they don't have enough plows or salt trucks to go around and actually fix it. Yeah. And then the building codes are all different. So we have to drip faucets. Like when it gets to, if it's going to be freezing for consecutive days, you have to open all your cabinets up so that the heat circulates around the pipes and then drip all your faucets because the insulation, the R values that are required are just lower here than anywhere else. Because I mean, we'll have consecutive weeks of 100-degree weather, but the fact that we get maybe a week or two of below freezing consistent weather is pretty rare. So it's like when it does happen, I mean, people's pipes are exploding. There's like even underground pipes because they're not buried as deep. Those are great.
Even worse. That's even worse.
So like it gets pretty brutal.
Yeah, I had to replace a spigot. Do you guys say a spigot or a faucet? What do you guys call it?
A spigot.
Spigot.
Yeah.
Outdoor spigot. I had to replace mine
outdoor
yesterday.
Spigots, indoor faucets.
Indoor faucet. Yeah, like so our spigot. I guess it was also partially because the spigot was just like when it was installed with a slight. It was just slightly inverted upward.
It was slanted the wrong
backwards, way. Froze, pipe burst. So had to replace that. And yeah, I mean, it's just a thing that happens here. So yeah, we're conditioned here in Texas to drip the faucets. But to answer your question, low of 13, high of 27. It said is what I'm seeing. But like, yeah, we had to. I don't know. Like tomorrow, we already got the alert for Dallas ISD is closed. School is closed. So, and our work schedule goes off with DISD. So they just said, "Hey, just work from home tomorrow." I was like, okay. Is it really going to be that bad though? Because there's like hard freeze warnings. And I don't know. Here in Dallas, it's like a state of emergency. Like people don't know how to drive in like any sort of condition that's not like optimal.
So if it rains in the South, it's like people just lose their minds.
Yeah.
So I put the trash cans out last night. I walked outside last night to put trash cans out. It was negative 17 degrees Fahrenheit. That was without the wind chill. That was just the temperature when I put the trash cans out. It is negative 8 as we speak outside my front door. And
we're not like neggies.
It's just one of those, and it didn't get above 2 today. Like all day. I went to the store, full sunrise. It was 1 degree, I think, when I was on the freeway. And the best part about this is I went to go salt the driveway, and I looked at the bag, and it said good to negative 7, and I went, well, I guess I'm not salting the driveway today. Like,
man.
So it wasn't going to work. It was like, and I had to check the windshield wiper bucket because it's only good. The juice is only good to like negative 20. So
that's wild, man. I actually enjoy the cold though. I don't know about you guys, but I like it'll be, like 13 degrees out there. I turn on the Solo stove, sit out there. I don't know. I enjoy the cold like that. I don't mind that. Are you the same way, or is that
I love
repulsive?
the cold.
Okay,
yeah,
we're similar guy. There.
I mean, my wife, when we were in Utah, I think 9 degrees was the coldest it got in the 15 years I lived there. And
in Utah?
yeah, like it might have dipped below for an hour, but 9-10ish was. I have a photo of it on my phone. That's the only reason I remember it.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's so cold. And I'm like, babe, you don't know what cold is. Like, this isn't cold. Like, and she's like, how do you go outside in nothing but blue jeans, a hoodie, and boots all the time? Why don't you ever wear a coat? And now she's getting a concept of like, babe, it's -7 outside. You want to go outside? Like, you want to go play in the snow for a bit? And she's like, it's so cold. I'm like, this is cold. This is when I put on a jacket and I put gloves on and I have earmuffs and I go outside and I shovel the snow for 3 hours. Right. But anyway.
Wait, I'm just real quick. I'm so sorry to the listeners here, but guys, do I actually sound good? Because there have been instances where either me or Ben or our microphone inputs are wrong. Do I actually sound good?
No, you're good.
I don't hear a problem.
Awesome.
I gotcha.
Sorry, Ben, you were going to say something earlier, but then my bad.
Didn't check your settings.
No,
I didn't check my settings.
I was thinking through just like growing up in upstate New York, and when I was young, we used to get a couple of days where we'd hit like 20 below, like anywhere between 15 and 20 below was kind of a normal-ish winter in like the 90s. And then the worst I personally ever felt was and I do love the cold. Like, I grew up in it. I loved it. We're outside all the time. And I miss when it gets so cold, the snow like squeaks underneath your feet because it's so dry, because there's so little humidity.
Doing that right
awesome.
now.
It sounds so cool. But I went snowboarding in West Virginia a couple of years ago. And at the top of the mountain, we were getting wind chill warnings because it was -47 at the top. And so you had to go up there fully wrapped. And I actually came back inside when I had a really long beard. And by the time I got back inside, and we had a mountaintop, like a ski lift top chalet that we rented with a bunch of people. And so we just get off the lift and go straight into the cabin. And I was wearing this face mask. And when I went to take it off, I realized I couldn't, because the moisture from my breath had formed a full sheet of ice inside the mask and had frozen it to my face. So I had to just go sit. It had frozen it like to the beard hair on my face. So I had to go just sit in front of the fire and wait for it to melt before I could actually peel my face mask off and get it to dry out.
When I would snowboard in Utah and I wouldn't cover up this part of my beard, I could actually just break chunks of it off. Like, and if you weren't careful, you'd like rub, and all of a sudden you just, I guess I had a beard trim today.
I shaved.
That was oops. Yeah.
Andy Reid, head coach of the Chiefs, his mustache was just all ice yesterday. That was fun. That was kind of fun to see develop over the course of the game.
My favorite is right now I go outside, and that first like inhale through your nose, it just ices up, and you're like, oh, yep, okay, I forgot. That's a thing. Yeah, that hasn't happened in a while. And then it like the ice crystals slow down and life gets back to normal, but you're like, oh, yep, okay, breathe through your mouth. I forgot. Yeah, okay, moving on.
Well, that was a fun intro. That was cool. We should do that more often. But if we're gonna get to the very unsexy topic of finances now, again, guys, this is not a financial podcast. We're not financial experts. We're just dads. Everyone has different approaches here. But one thing that a lot of people do take advantage of, as they kind of try to look ahead to the future, try to put away money for their kiddos, is using a 529 account. Right. This is something that you can go to in Fidelity or Vanguard or Chuck Shaw or wherever you want, and open up a 529 account and start putting away money for your kids. This is a big reason for it is for tax purposes, right? Ben is our finance guy, but because he kind of works in the industry, he's going to be a little bit more tight-lipped for this topic here. But
the thoughts and opinions I give are my own and do not represent my employer in any way.
There you go. But a big reason for that a lot of people will do this is for tax reasons. It's in some states, and there's an article here that we can link, but because there's some new things that kind of rolled out with the 529 because they saw enrollment drop significantly. But just pulling from the article, it says in some states you can get a tax deduction or credit for contributions. A few states also offer additional benefits to scholarships or matching grants to their residents if they invest in their home state's 529 plan. So again, if you don't, you could not go with Vanguard or Fidelity or whatever. And you can, if I were to look up like Texas 529 account, there are like ones from your state that you can go to. So that there are many different ways that you can go about it. But like I mentioned, there was a significant drop in the last year or two. So they kind of rolled out some new incentives to kind of bolster contributions, but also help the people who are actively contributing. Now, before we get into that, just guys, I mean, are you doing 529? Andrew, I know you're not, and we'll get into maybe that later, but kind of your approach, right? And again, not financial advice, guys. It's just what Andrew's doing, right? Ben, I mean, what are you doing?
We don't run any kind of 529s or anything like that yet. So right now our focus is, and I will say we are probably an upper middle class income family. And our focus right now is just, I think with inflation and the economy, is paying for daycare. So once we get through the grind of kind of paying for daycare, at least for one kid, that's when we plan on stepping up our financial contributions to their sort of future savings. One of the other things, and we can get into this later, but I think is interesting, is like content creators is the ability to actually hire your kids as models during your work and actually pay them a salary through your LLC. And that becomes something you can actually pay your children. It becomes like a tax deduction as well. And you can put that, I think it's into like a Roth IRA. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of caveats with that. So you really need to talk to like a qualified tax advisor who can kind of help you work through that. But something interesting for you, Andrew, as well, if you're continuing on with using the boys and shoots or anything like that.
That's so interesting, because I think for me, with Dad Verb moving forward, I really want to pull away from that. I don't want to feature my kids as much, so that's probably not going to be an option. I just don't want them on camera as much, especially as they go older. I think it's kind of just not in their best interest, and I know that effectively. I mean, that effectively kills the Dad Verb channel, because a lot of its success is predicated on like my kids, my family, and them engaging with whatever things that we pick up. And like, it's like, I'm just like, yeah, I don't. Well, the success is also predicated on my ability to keep creating content, and me stop creating. I haven't posted anything since like November, so it's like I've kind of killed it myself. But it's a large charge, because I don't want my kids on camera as much.
Yeah, it's fair.
But to just kind of roll into the new things for the 529s, pulling from this article from CNBC, it says now 529s offer more flexibility, even for those who never enroll in college, right? A point of resistance that potential participants have had is the limitation around what happens if my kid gets a scholarship or decides that they're not going to college. Okay, in such cases, you could transfer the funds to another beneficiary or withdraw them and pay taxes and a penalty on the earnings. There's always penalties, guys. If your student wins a scholarship, you can typically withdraw up to the amount of the scholarship penalty free. However, the added benefit of being able to convert any leftover funds into a Roth IRA tax-free after 15 years up to a limit of $35,000 helps to eliminate the point of resistance. So, pros and cons. It's not like the greatest thing in the world, but like, there's they're introducing some just kind of new ways or new reasons to invest for your kid's future, if that's something that you want to chip into. So yeah, Andrew, I'll kick it off to you.
Well, I was gonna say, it's good to point out that they just did a thing called Secure 2.0, and it became effective January 1st, 2024. It's early January 2024. I don't remember the specific date, but it corrected a lot of the quote unquote issues with the 529, right? Because you could put a bunch of money into your kid's account, and if they never go to college, they can never touch it. And if you happen to die, then it's just sitting there going, you got to go to college. And so that's where they tried to fix it, I guess, would be the best way to place it, or the best way to caveat it.
Right.
Put it that way.
So that's how a 529 in theory works. You save up money, and then when they come of age, they take the money, they spend it on Harvard, right? But it doesn't always work out that way.
Right. But you have to be very specific. It is like an HSA, right? You can only spend it on approved items. Like they can't go buy a laptop. It's like tuition housing.
There you go.
Right.
Yep.
There's no ability to buy food with it. Right. It's education related expenses. Like, I think somebody was saying it's really hard to even buy books with your 529 money. Right.
It's pretty much just for tuition.
Right.
And it is supposed to be for books as well, but it becomes difficult to prove and go through the process. So it's part of it is also just the process of accessing the funds that becomes really difficult. And one thing to be clear about too is that, as far as I understand, 529s are post-tax contributions. So it's not like you're saving on the front end. And I think there are 4 states that do not have what's called tax parity, which means it's like Hawaii, California, Kentucky, and maybe one other, where you do not get an additional tax deduction for contributing to a 529. So a lot of states do. You contribute, and then you can actually deduct the pre-tax that you've paid back from your account, or at least a portion of it. But there are some states that don't. So it's going to vary by wherever you live and kind of what your tax situation is. So definitely something to look into before you use it, because there might be other vehicles that are more beneficial.
Well, and
Andrew,
and
tell us your story.
Removing the money can create a tax event for the beneficiary, which is a whole nother ball of wax, because
they got to pay when they take it out.
Yeah. And so not only is it, you've already paid taxes on that income, you're putting it in, the beneficiary is paying taxes on it when it comes out. And I mean, this happened to a member of my extended family. They ended up with a large tax bill because their tuition got paid via their 529. And all of a sudden they're like, I didn't make that much money this year. Like no, that's not true. Well, it turns out that it was a taxable event for them, and they were over 18, so it was on their income tax, and it created some financial hardships, right, and struggles that had to be dealt with. And so it makes sense, I think, if you're going to trickle money into it over a long time.
Right.
But even with like the changes they made today or this month, right, you can't take money out of it within 5 years. You can't transfer the money to an Roth IRA until it's been in the thing for 5 years. And you can't transfer it out until it's been in there for 15 years. Then there's a lifetime limit to the amount you can transfer out. So if you put $100,000 in this thing, you better be spending $75,000 on it on education expenses, or $65,000, because you're not getting the other, you're not right. Like, I don't know. It seems very limiting. A lot of the like an HSA account is one of those strategic deposits that you have to make. Right. You don't just go, shove the maximum in. That sounds great, because, well, that might not be great 10 years from now. Anyway.
So what are you doing instead, just in your experience?
So what I've elected to do is, well, we're doing kind of 2 things. My kids have their own savings accounts. So if they get like a $2 bill, or they get a 20, or somebody gives them a check, right? My wife and I really want them to understand going to a bank. And yes, they're 2 and not 1 yet, right? They don't get it yet. But the point of us is, you're going to go make a deposit. You're going to interact with a bank. You're going to learn how to handle money that way.
Yeah.
But our plan as a family is to actually set up more of a family trust situation, where our major financial assets are sitting in this ephemeral legal entity that all of the beneficiaries have access to. And then the idea, there aren't a lot of assets in it right now. Okay. So it's a very like, it's not like anybody's buying a home out of this trust, right? I'm not sitting over here with $1 billion. The idea would be that they can take a loan out to get instead of taking a mortgage, pay for their house, or they can just let the trust buy their house and live in it and pay rent, right? And that way this trust has funds. And the other idea would be, okay, you can withdraw money for legal expenses. You can withdraw money for medical expenses. You can withdraw money for any number of things, right? But what you can't do is withdraw money to go to Pizza Hut and get 5 double extra larges, right? That's kind of the the system we've got set up, there's a lot of nuance around it. It requires lawyers. It requires a trustee. It requires beneficiary. Like, it's not fun, guys.
It's a lot to set up. It's a
lot to set up.
But there are definitely some advantages to that setup.
Right. And there's no headaches. Okay. You want to take money out of it? You call a guy, you say, make a withdrawal. He checks the boxes and says, yes, you're allowed to do that. And the withdrawal is made. Like, it's not, it's not like some government organization is going to be like, you used your trust money incorrectly. Because the only people you're responsible to are the other trustees and the other beneficiaries. So that's how we're planning on managing it as a family. We have some farm assets, and that's kind of my goal. But again, it's not like I'm sitting on $1 million, $10 million, $20 million over here, right? I've got.
I think I think
there might be $500 or $600 in the account designated for the trust, because that's the amount I've managed to shove over there and just go, that's for that.
Yeah, so. It's funny because because we've got 529s for each of our kids, but but it's like I'm not like contributing it monthly to it like I am with a 401k or the Roth IRA. It's just kind of like maybe here and there, or like and my dad and my mom, they often want to like get gifts for the kids that aren't just things, so they'll often like contribute to their 529s, which the kids are just like, what the like that doesn't that's not a thing.
Doesn't mean anything to them now.
Exactly.
It will when they're not paying back student loans for 20 years.
Exactly. But one thing that my dad real quick, so one thing that my dad did do though is that he opened up a custodial account for me, and I don't remember how it was invested, but it's like if you want to just like buy stocks for your kids, pretty much, and invest in the S&P
custodial investment account.
Exactly. Yep. And then when they come of age, I think it's 18, they just just kind of gets handed over to them to do whatever they want. If they want to continue that, or they want to open it somewhere else, or do but that was kind of that was the way my dad did it. So when it was ready, I think the money, I forgot how it was invested. I feel like it was the S&P. The money was just in an index. And which it was just, I think it just that rises every 10% every however long.
5 to 8% roughly
follows the market. Yeah.
So which was like simple, safe, and there, that's fine.
But 5 to 8% over 30 years is a significant chunk of change if you've invested properly in the beginning.
That's one of the things that article really bugged me about, was because one of the like closing remarks was, if you take $35,000 and you just put it in an account and you don't touch it for 40 years, it'll be worth millions of dollars. And I'm like, that isn't how it works.
If I had that much money, I probably wouldn't be doing.
Well, no. You have to put it into an investment that is giving you at least a 5% return for the compound interest to actually add up to $1 million in 30 years. Right.
Yeah.
And even with a 529 account, you still have to manage it. Like, you still have to pick which funds you're investing in. And if anybody has ever played with their HSA account or with their 401k, it's really easy if you don't just pick like the 2034 mutual fund or the 2060 mutual fund to have a zero growth or a negative growth profile. And even some of those like 2050, 2060 funds will have down years because of how they're invested and how the market's doing.
Exactly.
And so it bugs me when they just put those like one-liners out there, because
it's a very generic assumption about financial performance, which is we all know that there are very few things that hold completely true in financial markets. Like, I mean, even now, you can't even look at the market. Like, the market's weird now. It's been weird for a couple of years, since we've come in and out of the pandemic. Like, just stocks have been very strange and have resisted all sort of logical sense of what they should do. They have kind of done the opposite. So, again, there's very few things the market's going to do that make a lot of sense over the long term. You can see long-term patterns and long-term growth, and generally, like, even with real estate, most things go up over the long term. But as you said, Andrew, I mean, generalizing it and say, if you put this amount, you're going to get this amount. Like, that's a very hard and fast sort of assumption, and it doesn't work that way.
Right. I mean, when we were growing up, or I feel like when we were growing up, you could buy $100 treasury bond and it earned 3 to 5% a year, right? And if you held on to it for 20 years, all of a sudden you had a $200 bond sitting there. And it was like there was this stable set, but that's not even the case anymore. I don't even think treasury bonds are earning 5. I mean, I'd have to go look. I'm not gonna quote a percentage, but I don't think it's 5%. Last time I was trying to buy one, it was like 1.1 or 0.8, and it was like, this is ridiculous. Why would I do this?
Yeah.
And even that, Apple made news end of 2023 with their 4% savings account, right? That was a huge like coup.
4 to 5% is a high yield savings account.
Yeah, and it was like, wait a minute, that's barely what you're going to pay on interest on your car payment. Like,
right. And that I would encourage everybody, like if you have a savings account and you're just parked in a bank, go look at what your yield is, like your APY, because what you're getting more than likely, if you're in a major bank, you're getting 0.025%. You might be getting 0.25% for a bank to continue to invest the money that you're holding in their institution.
Yeah.
If nothing else, find a better financial vehicle to save your money in while you're figuring out what else to do with it.
Yeah.
And, one of the things that I think is important to talk about here is like custodial investment accounts are an option, right? If you have an LLC, again, talk to your tax professional, talk to your financial advisor. If you have kids and you're a content creator, like paying your kids as models or as a salary through your business, that is a tax sort of vehicle or a tax savings vehicle where you can pay them a salary and invest it for them. Again, I'm talking very generically about this because every tax situation is going to be different. And again, this is not financial advice, but these are things that you can do. And then interestingly, kind of thinking through just some of the other investment vehicles like a trust. So Andrew, you mentioned that's something that we're considering as well. And I think at the core of all of this, right, it's planning for the future. And so what we're looking at is like, if something were to happen to both my wife and I, how do we make sure the kids are taken care of, right? And that there's not, and we've recently seen this with, really unfortunately with a lot of really close friends and even within our own family, is you have people pass away and they have assets, real estate, maybe they lived in multiple states, maybe they had, real estate assets that are getting sold or investment accounts. Even if you have a will that says this is supposed to go to this person and this goes to this person, that all still has to go through this process of probate where they have to go through everything, contact next of kin, contact all these people, and lawyers have to get written proof that nobody has a claim to a real estate asset or a financial asset or whatever the case is. And if you can put all of those things into whether it's a living trust or a revocable trust, whatever the vehicle is that you choose to use, you avoid a lot of those headaches. And that's especially, I think, beneficial when you have young children who are not 18. And even if they are 18, they're not going to know what to take care of and what your wishes are. You're basically putting in writing, this is what I want to do. This is where my assets are. This legal entity owns all of those. And this is how that will be divvied up. What that does is give you the benefit of keeping the sort of probate process out of it, keeping these sort of government entities out of that process of transfer of assets from you to your next of kin or the named beneficiaries.
Well, I think the part that is fuzzy here is that those assets aren't transferring, right? That's the thing that everybody should probably understand about a trust.
To them. They just have access to it.
Assets belong to the trust, and the trust has people who can benefit from it, and the trust has to disperse assets on a schedule that's defined legally. But a lot of trusts, what you can say is disperse these assets to these individuals. If they have no use of them, reinvest them in the trust in this manner. And it becomes this thing. So there is no transfer of assets. There's not even like the assets just are sitting in the trust. Like your house would not be owned by Ben or Andrew. It would be owned by Ben Trust 5629, right? And Ben is the person who's allowed to live there and by living there, he owes the trust X amount of rent every month. So now he's actually paying interest into his own financial future, as opposed to, but there's a caveat. You have to have cash to actually own the house, right? The trust has to be able to purchase it, which is there's a financial issue there, right? Yeah. But I think the other thing that is nice about these vehicles, you can even do this with an LLC somewhat, is it's very hard to sue a trust. Like if you get in a car accident, right? Someone can sue you and you can lose your house if you don't have the right amount of insurance or the insurance doesn't cover it all. Whereas with something like a trust, they can't sue the trust because the trust can't hurt them. And if the trust owns all the entities, then they can sue you, but you're broke. You're not you don't actually own anything, right? You're just a guy in a suit who doesn't own anything and pays rent to this or their organization. So it sounds dumb, but it's like we should all look into it, because it's the way, as dumb as this sounds, it's the way what I would call the top 1% or the wealthy elite manage to protect themselves. Like, sure, someone's going to sue someone else for multi-millions of dollars, and there's going to be a settlement, and they're still living in their Malibu beach house. And you're going, how is that possible? Well, they didn't actually own it. This thing over here owned it.
You're dissolving companies at that point. You're just saying, oh, the LLC is now bankrupt, but I'm not bankrupt.
Right.
Yeah. So,
guys,
all good stuff.
We're off topic, but
again, none of this is stuff that you should like take to heart. You got to talk to your own people about this. Consult your own family, your own financial whoever's.
Get a real lawyer and a real accountant. H&R Block does not count.
Not just some buffoons in a podcast. All right, but I at least just wanted to shed some light on that topic. Just real quick, we got a Discord comment come in. It says, hey guys, not sure if you had any luck getting your littles the RSV vaccine. We just got an email about a new shipment dropping in January. We got lucky. Our pediatricians noticed out when they got theirs. And my wife jumped on it right away, scheduled an appointment. Go look out there. I heard about this as well. We've dealt with RSV in the past. It's not fun. It definitely sucks. We haven't really inquired about any sort of vaccine yet. Have you guys poked into this at all? Either of you?
So I put this up there because in October, the CDC announced there was going to be a shortage, which the announcement then led to a massive shortage. And it was on our Discord several times throughout October, December, but it looks like January, they finally started getting a bunch of shipments, and it's kind of receding. There's a bunch of guys saying, no, we got one here, we got one there. Everybody who's been commenting is actually in New England, New York, New Jersey area, larger population base. So I'm not sure how much it works for the rest of the country, but it was just something I thought we should bring to everybody's attention, that if you've been looking for one, start looking again, because they are shipping more. A couple articles I read said they had shipped something like 75,000 doses to CDC centers in the month of January. So
there you go. So call your pediatricians. Have an opportunity. You can call your pediatricians. I think there's, counties have different health departments as well. You can always check in on. And then let's finish this off with our kind of fitness accountability here. Andrew's kind of been leading the charge on our Discord. Let's kind of get our fitness check here.
This is Prince Bougie's fault, because Prince Bougie specifically said in the Discord, if you don't log in and do your sessions, you're going to get called out. So here we are. There are 9 individuals who have joined the squaddy, however it's pronounced. I'm not going to pretend like I got that.
Oh man, I'm going to be
Anthony,
embarrassed myself.
Elo N and Lumna, y'all haven't done any sessions for a week. Let's go, boys. Pick it up. Good work on the other 6 of you. Although I'm not going to call Ben out because I made him test it. I don't think he wanted to participate, but he is in there and he hasn't logged any sessions. So, and Andrew hasn't joined us yet. So
I haven't and I honestly haven't logged any sessions personally in this past week. So it's been a rough go. But
I've been doing strength training, specifically shoveling snow. That has been my exercise. I had 3 90-minute plus sessions this week.
Very Rocky Balboa of you.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to save our video games chat for next week, but that'll do it for this week's episode of the Dad Verb Podcast. Check out the show notes in the YouTube description. If you want to join us on Discord or check out the article that we were talking about with regards to the 529s, you can visit dadverb.com for courses from pregnancy up through year 1 of fatherhood. As always, thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.